You say that qui position? Means how are you? Then you reply, tout correct. Means everything okay. Tout correct. So that's your lesson, first lesson for today. We'll keep in a few words. Okay, trying to start this session. First thing is about sustainable tourism in Mauritius. I guess you understand why I'm trying to research in this particular field, because it's a small island and we have lots of challenges for a small island where tourism is taking a new dimension. I will explain why. So I'm just going to talk a little bit on sustainable development. Now, because the audience here are all familiar with sustainable development, I'm not going to dwell too much on what is sustainable development. A little bit more on sustainable tourism, why there's a need for responsible tourism. And then, as the director mentioned, we have Mauritius now, we are embarking on a new phase, what we call Maurice Île Giraffe, that is Mauritius Sustainable Island, and probably one of the few directions for Mauritius. Again, these are just definitions about where it originated. I think we are all aware that, well, in the 1970s, probably if you go back in the archive, you'll find that there might be someone who has already mentioned sustainable development. But officially, in 1970s, it started gaining recognition. Then following the Brundtland Commission, Agenda 21, in 87 was an important landmark where people start really talking about sustainable development. And what the official UN definition is all about sustainable development is about meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations. I think it's very well accepted. Unfortunately or fortunately, there is no consensus on the definition of sustainable. We keep debating. There are papers after papers, and we're finding out even on the comma and words, that are being used to define sustainable development. But I think we can come to a compromise and have a definition, something like it's the process towards, if you want to reach a steady state. Being an economist, I like the word steady state, where both humanity and nature thrive. That is, to achieve satisfied basic needs for all humans in balance with a healthy natural environment. I think it has some ingredient to say where we want to go. Now, just to talk a little bit about sustainability and sustainable development, just in a nutshell, we have 4 fundamentals, and then which I think we're all on the same common ground about sustainable development. It is very interconnected between environment, culture, society, and environment. In many articles you'll find they mention mostly the 3 pillars: the environment, society, and economy, where culture is like the underlying, it's already implicit in the society. But however, the sustainable development requires a widespread economic prosperity and a shared environmental concern. If we look at a holistic understanding of what sustainability and sustainable development is all about, I say it's reconciling the 3 main imperatives. First, the ecological imperative, that is to live within a global biophysical carrying capacity and to maintain biodiversity. Second, not really in order, but to say also social imperative, that is to ensure the development of democratic systems of governance that can effectively propagate and sustain the values of people who wish to live by, and also economic imperative to ensure that the basic needs are met worldwide. So I think it is important also what we mean by a truly sustainable society. It is one where the questions of social needs and welfare and economic opportunity are integrally related to the environment limits imposed by the supporting ecosystems. If we look at the world, first of all, let me talk about tourism. When tourism really wasn't, if you look at the 1950s or 1970s, tourism was mostly in the north, mostly from the Europe to the US, from the US to the other European countries. But with time, we find that the international tourist arrival have grown over the years, from 25 million to 903 million. It's a big figure. I mean, you find that they are, I should have put more arrows, but it is now, you find that we are all mobile now. We keep going, from north, south, north, right? And if you look at the receipts, it's about $1 trillion. the total receipt. So you can see how many zeros we have in the trillion. I would say what are the culprits for increased tourism? First, about the mobility. We are becoming more mobile. We have transport. With a bit of invention, technology. We are all mobile now. We have time. We have more leisure time. Although for academic, we keep working 24 hours. But yeah, because of mobility, there are more tourism that is taking place. It is a great source of income for many people. It is a source of tax revenue. Government like to tax you. Tourists like tax. So when we travel, it's easier because we don't vote. It's easier to tax the tourists. Why the visa fees and so on. It's a profitable industry. That's why you have so many foreign direct investment flowing into countries. That's the main reason. It's a source of foreign exchange. No need to tell you, countries like Zimbabwe badly need foreign exchange, for example. But one of the sources could be tourism. But unfortunately, we know what's happening. And it is becoming an alternative source for economic development, especially for new destinations, for developing countries. Because now they are moving away from agriculture to manufacturing, but the source where they can employ people, they see that tourism. But also it has some limits, but however, also tourism brings some positive impacts. It has a lot of negative impacts as well. We have to be aware of that. The negative impacts are more prominent. We try to become them. For example, in terms of physical aspect, it causes wear and tear to the natural environment, creates pollution, increases the stress on the fragile ecosystem. There is inappropriate waste disposal where they dump them in the rivers and so on. We have loss of natural habitat and so on. In terms of socio-cultural, there is a demonstration effect. There's alienation of culture. There's increased crime, thefts, and so on. These are things that we expect at least a few places. In terms of economic, we have leakages. I mentioned the transnational companies where they invest in a lot of countries, especially where they invest in developing countries. There's lots of leakages. And the countries sometimes they don't weigh the opportunity cost of investing heavily in industry. It might not fit the place, but sometimes they try to say, well, it's a good chicken to invest, you'll have golden eggs. So they just jump on that opportunity. But the impacts of tourism is especially more pronounced on the small islands. There have been lots of conferences on the small island states, the impact of tourism. Because they are the small size, they have limited resources, and the ecology is very fragile. And Mauritius is no exception. When we look at the tourist arrival in Mauritius, small island like us, we are about 1.2 million people. Mauritius, I'm sure you have seen the guide, and if you see the size of it, it is just 45 kilometers wide, 60 kilometers long. That's all. It's a very small place. And we have, see from 1972, there were about less than 50,000 tourists. At the moment, we are reaching about 1 million. And the vision of the government is to bring 2 million tourists by 2015. I can see, I like your reaction. I like your reaction. I mean, if you see, we had this steady growth in the 70s up to 1987. There were new, impetus to the in tourism, where we created the Mauritian Tourism Authority, which is NTP. You find in the brochure. I mean, there was some steady growth, again, some increased growth, but just to see that diagram, just to see that steepness in growth, to reach 2 million in 2015, I'm sure you're asking questions. I'm sure when we have the garden session, you'll be bombarding me with questions there. So we'll have to be very careful. So to bring 2 million tourists by 2015, we have to think a little bit about the current capacities. I'm defining current capacities in the sense of the ability of the site or region to absorb tourism use without deterioration. Let's think about this. First,